And let's see if we are good on Facebook. This is a lot. I don't know how Sarah Grace does this.
I'm glad I have Stacy to do it.
Sorry guys, I thought this would be easier. One more second. Now someone's gonna have to edit this recording. Okay. You don't need that. Well, I can't figure out the live. Is anyone else on this call? Jenny, are you familiar with how to do this?
Unfortunately not. I was going to get a lesson from you.
No.
Well, why don't I go ahead and if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't.
All right. We
That's
just
okay.
won't be on Facebook Live because I can't figure it out.
Well, welcome to everybody. It's great to see new friends,
Okay.
old friends, and
Now where are you guys?
this weird time of pandemic. So Impact 100 has a
All right, Kath.
Yes.
Now I can't hear Kathy.
You can't hear me? You muted me.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, here we go. So Impact 100 was has a wonderful mission that has really resonated with me over time, and we seek to empower women to dramatically improve lives by collectively funding significant grants that make a lasting impact in our community. This mission has allowed us over time, since our founding in 2001 in Cincinnati by Wendy Steele, to donate over $5.1 million back into the community over the last 19 years. Our model is that we pool our funding and we award grants of $100,000 each year. This year, we're fortunate we're going to be able to award 4 $100,000 grants that will occur in September. So coming up very quickly this year, we do have 8 finalists. We had a powerful group of applicants this year, and so there'll be some tough choices ahead. Some of the things that are really significant about Impact 100 is 100% of our donations that people join at either the $500 level for the year or $1,000 level for the year. 100% of those funds go to fund the grants. As an organization, as a nonprofit, we do not expend any of our donated dollars for our operating costs. So our operating costs we have to get from sponsors, from corporate matches to our donations, and various other kinds of funding opportunities. So as an organization, of course, we have expenses, we put on events, we have a newsletter, we have to get an audit, all those kinds of things, you know, cost money, but 100% of our donations go to fund these grants. Also significantly, with the exception of having a very part-time administrative assistant to help with a few things, 100% of our board is a working board. So people like Stacy and people like Barb and people like myself and Teresa formerly have been on the board, and that is how all of the work gets done, along with our committees that are grant reviewing and so forth. So our nonprofits apply currently in 5 focus areas: culture, environment, education, health and wellness, and family. And so they apply through these funnels, and then we have what we call focus area committees that meet generally starting in late January through our site visits after the grant review process that occur usually in April or May when our finalists are selected. Our members then vote for those people who will receive the grants and be a finalist. And you'll hear more from Rachel in a few minutes about what happened when they won the award. For me personally, for Jill and Kelly, they will know that the year that I retired, Barb Fillion said to me, I think you might like this, as I was looking for what are some of the things I might want to be involved in. And one of the great things about Impact 100 is we call ourselves a no-guilt organization, so you can do as much or as little involvement as you want to be. And I've had years where I've done absolutely nothing but give the money, and know that that money is going to be well vetted, well invested, and make a difference in our community. And then there are years I've served on focus area committees, and then this is my 4th year serving on the board. I was a focus area chair for 3 years and now serve as the grant review coordinator, which works with all the focus areas. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be involved. And I will tell you, you can even tell just on this call in this small group, I've just met so many wonderful women who share a lot of the values that I share about making a difference and being involved in the community. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to learn a whole lot more about the needs of the community and where you can make a difference, both with your financial resources and, if you're so inclined, even with your time. So it's a great example of the collective power of women. So without anything further ado, I think we turn it over now to Rachel Lyon, who's the Director of Development at First Step Home, who was a recipient, I'm guessing, I don't know, I was gonna look it up. I think it was about 2017, but Rachel can correct me if that's not correct. And these live opportunities every Thursday have been a great chance not only to, connect with some people that are members, but to also hear what's been going on with the community and what has happened, because I've just found it really inspirational. So I really appreciate Rachel and others who have been willing to share with us and where they are in their journey. So thanks, Rachel.
Guess I'll unmute for this part. Thank you very much, Women of Impact 100, for asking me to speak. I'm truly honored and really felt totally engaged and supported during the process of applying, from going over the initial letter of inquiry to the full proposal, to becoming one of the finalists, which was very agonizing. Would we become one of the award winners? We even got some coaching for speaking at the awards dinner, which was very helpful. But let me move back and say, First Step Home is really the premier agency in Cincinnati to help women recover from addiction while they live together with their families. And that is a big mouthful, because most places will allow women in, will allow even pregnant women in, but after that birth, that child better be going to foster care. We are the place that allows them to come here, to be here. We almost specialize in women who are pregnant and postpartum. Women will come pregnant with a toddler in tow, etc. And it was through this that we decided to launch the Terry Shainling Home for Mothers and Infants, to work with women at the very last phase of their pregnancy and the first month or two of after the child's birth. And we call it Terry's Home for short, so I'm going to call it Terry's Home so we don't have to get into a long title every time I mention it. But we were cared for really well. The committee met with us. It was quite a process to apply. And I remember coming to the dinner the previous year. I had come for a couple of different years, and saying, we are going to be on that stage next year. And I was thrilled to be able to make that wish come through, and even more thrilled to be chosen to support, because you helped us launch a really important program, getting these women during their last month of pregnancy and the first month of the child's birth. As all of you know, postpartum depression is a real deal. It's even more severe for a woman who's addicted, for a woman who is afraid of losing her child. And we were able to help women not lose their child to foster care through your help. It was astonishing, made a big difference. So when we started, we talked about this project and a couple of other projects in our agency, and got encouragement about two of them. And of course, then, you decide. And we decided to go with the brand new Terry's House, because we wanted to start caring for the babies as well as the women. And it was an offshoot of our maternal addiction program. We really wanted to make sure that these women weren't left hanging and possibly to go out and use again, out of sheer depression and fear of being a new mom. Take postpartum depression, on steroids. I mean, it is a very frail and dangerous time for both the woman and the baby. A lot of these babies have some level of withdrawal that they must go through. Their moms have used during the pregnancy. They've stopped by the time they get to us, but that doesn't mean they haven't been using for 5 or 6 months, something like that. And we immediately get them into prenatal care and get them into a beautiful home, which we renovated through grants, state grants and foundations and individuals, and even furnished through a grant. And each woman has her own room with her baby. So that kind of special privacy to get to know the baby and bond with the baby are big pieces of the puzzle. One of the things that's happened as a result of the successful sponsoring of Terry's Home by Impact 100 is that we were really able to get what was a very new program that didn't exist in a lot of other places. There weren't 15 places that we could base our idea off of. There was one outside of Boston that had done something kind of sort of similar, and there were a couple on the West Coast, actually in the Seattle area, but there was certainly no one in Cincinnati caring for this, again, this very frail time in recovery for the mom and coming to life for these babies. So we asked for help for this project. You guys gave it to us, and it was a remarkable night. My president, Margot Spence, spoke, as did one of our clients. And our client got her clothes from Dress for Success for the night. She had 6 kids that she was now momming again. She was living with them, had made it a couple of years. And with the coaching that she got through Impact 100, helping us to focus our attention and present in a short, concise way, she was able to tell her story, which was rather harrowing, in a very concise way. It moved everyone in the room. We all felt that there is a chance that there, but for the grace of God go I. You know, there is a chance that we could have swung into some poor choices in high school and after high school, and then continued down a negative and downward spiral. So when we were chosen, we were just frozen in our seats for a minute, and I was like, Margot, get up, it's you, you know, and we were just thrilled to the bone. And a lot has come from the support that Impact 100 gave us. We have, since that time, we've instituted nursing care for all babies that are here at First Step Home, not just for those that are in their first couple of months. That was due to Impact 100. That was due to us having enough money, resources, essentially, to run the program, get it up and running well, and see that it could be used elsewhere in our programs. We have since that time also launched the Child Resiliency Program, which takes children that are living with us, that are daughters or sons of addicted women, and treats them and gives them nursing care, but also gives them counseling, gives them emotional and social learning through kind of emotional intelligence tools. There's one called Second Step, which we work with. So we were able to kind of found our efforts for children with this grant from Impact 100 and open it to more and more, and essentially to all of our children that are here. And, you know, on campus, no hassle, no transportation, walk from your house, you know, 50 steps to the treatment center, and there is the child therapist, there is the speech pathologist, there is the pediatric nurse. And having in Terry's Home project, having a pediatric nurse help during those first 4 to 8 weeks really made a difference in terms of how the babies did. The babies come home from the hospital 4 to 8 days after the moms give birth. They are in the NICU, the natal ICU, and they are struggling to overcome withdrawal, if not outright. And we don't use the term addiction with a baby because it implies that there was a choice involved. For these babies, there was no choice. They were given these drugs in utero, and they have just simply a physical dependence on the drugs. And it takes a long time for them to overcome that initial dependence and be brought home. One of the other big things that came from Impact 100's gift to us is that we are now a safety plan. We are now considered a place where children that might have been taken away from their moms because of their mom's history with other kids or whatever, are able to come to First Step Home and stay here with their moms and make a bonded family. This is something that women would be terrified to go get prenatal care because it would set off a bunch of red lights, if you will, that would then set Child Protective Services on their case and potentially remove the child before they could bring them home. First Step Home was able to prove that we are a safe and sober environment for those moms to come. And therefore, we have been able to keep like 85% of the children together with their moms, as opposed to what it was before, 50%. So it was a big impact, I guess, from, directly stemming from the Impact 100 donation, or grant, I should say. Another thing that I think helped us is that we had a fair amount of reporting and connecting in after the grant came. And we took the grant in 2 separate years. So we were awarded in September of 17. We took the grant in 2018 and 2019 so that we could work with, as Terry's Home was launching, so that we could work the grant to the time period of the organization. So really, we could not have been more successful if we tried, by having the money to launch, to fully launch, not to have a quarter of a therapist or a quarter of a nurse, but to have a nurse, a pediatric nurse, to have a real behavioral therapist take on the women who were struggling in their phase of having to be both a full-time mom and a woman who is struggling to recover from addiction. So those are the basic, that's kind of the basic chronology of what happened. We think we are going to come back in a year or two, so don't be surprised if you hear from us again. We know a few other organizations have been granted money twice, and we hope that we will be one of those organizations, since all we do is treat women and help women become successful members of society. We give the women vocational training. We give the women parenting classes. We give the women a lot of wraparound services that allow them to face their demons while moving forward in their lives. And so I think that about does it for the first kind of few minutes. And I would love to take questions. I would love to answer anything that you might have about what happened in our process, or the project, or since the project, us bringing forward the concepts of Terry's Home throughout our organization.
Awesome, Rachel. We've got some really great questions in the chat. I'm just going to start from the beginning, or the first question. Let's see, Randy asked, how many women and babies are served in a year? What is staffing like?
We had hoped to serve 96. What we found out very quickly was that the babies and the moms needed more time. That is, they needed not just the final month of the pregnancy, but the first couple of months of living after the birth to do well psychologically and physically for the baby. So we have 48 adults and 48 babies that are in that house every year. And that is still a really good, powerful number. We treat 400 clients a year, and for 48 of them to be touched by Terry's Home is fantastic. We did allow that longer time. That's one of our learnings, if you will, that it was, we were dictating the first month after the birth, and meanwhile, the birth kind of dictated back to us, no, we need more time, and so we did. We have a clinical behavioral therapist that works with the children. The maternal addiction coordinator works with the moms. We have a pediatric nurse who checks the children and the moms every week for the whole period that they're in that program. And then now, because of using these tools and branching out with them, they continue to monitor the kids, the pediatric nurse, through that first year of development. We also have a pediatrician that we assign to the babies, because a lot of them are going to have developmental problems, not just instantly, but over a long period of time. And so for that mother to begin to get to know, this is your kid's doctor. This is who to go to when there's a problem. This is who's going to help you out to find out if you need an IEP or a specialized, school program as that child turns 5 and 6. So we have, I guess, 5 staff that really touch with the women. And of course, our housing staff, which come in and help the women to learn to cook if they haven't been cooking. Some of them have been eating out of brown bags for years and have not learned to cook, who have learned to, and so they can learn to care for themselves, find vocational services, begin to think about work, all those kinds of things. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'm just going to piggyback that. Does that mean the women and children are at Terry's home full time? Can they still hold a job, or can they leave, or are they pretty much just living there all day for 4 months?
Good question. Our women pre-COVID could leave at any time. We've had some changes since COVID happened, not during year grant, but they do leave for therapy, they do leave for group, they do leave for doctor's appointments and appointments to get their medical assisted treatment or their MAT medicines. They do leave, and we care for the babies in childcare when those moms do have to take 2 hours for a group or whatever, and the moms come back and kind of work in childcare and learn a lot from the childcare people about successfully parenting a baby.
Awesome. So then is the average length of stay for a mom like 3 months or so?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a waiting list to?
There are times when there's a waiting list. It's always hopping and popping because the rooms are beautiful, because they're private. They've got greater privacy than they would at the other homes that we offer. But when they leave Terry's home, they step down into more responsibility and more freedoms in the other housing that we have to offer. We have 12 buildings, and Terry's home is one of them.
Got it. So Kathy's asked, where exactly is Terry's home located? Have you become a model for other cities? And how has the pandemic affected you all?
Okay, well, 3 different questions, that's for sure. We are located at basically Gilbert, and we're located in Walnut Hills, where all of our buildings are within a 3-block radius of each other. So on this block, we own all the buildings on this particular block, and then we have an apartment building catty corner across the street. We have our main treatment center, which is 2 doors down from us. And then one door down from us, the administration building, is Terry's home, which we had completely refurbished and rehabbed in order to create Terry's home. So that's the Scooty on where Terry's home is. In terms of what have we done, I think there was a 3-part question. What have we done since COVID was one of the parts. Do I have that right?
Yep.
Okay. We have done everything in the kitchen sink since COVID happened. We have limited passes and visits. We have eliminated, generally with very few exceptions, visits to First Step Home. We have been masking, washing our hands, sanitizing everything, all that stuff, checking temperatures. And the women have been relatively compliant. And this is a group of gals who don't necessarily take to following rules very well, but for their own safety and for the safety of their children, they have been wearing masks. They have been following our directives about not going out as much. Now, currently, in the intermediate space of opening up somewhat, our women can go out for 4 hours to visit their older children who are often living with grandparents or an aunt or even a foster home, so that they can have a visit and then come back, and they have to be temperature taken, mask back on, all the, everything done to reestablish their squeaky cleanness, if you will, to come back in. And we are lucky, and we've done a lot to be lucky, but we are very lucky that none of our clients have been positive, nor their children or babies, for COVID so far. Knock wood, knock wood.
Awesome. And the third part of that was, have you become a model for other cities?
Yeah, is that the finish of the question?
Yes.
Sorry.
I was reading it as well. Yes.
We have become a model. There is a group in North Carolina that has modeled what they're now doing after our model. A couple of our people went to national conferences, including our medical director. People were impressed with what was happening, especially to unite the medical, the psychological, and the drug treatment all together in wraparound services. So we are finding that others are coming to us and saying, how are you doing that? And we're sharing.
That's wonderful. And then Barb says, is your work totally supported by grants, or do you get assistance from other sources, from the city?
Our work is generally 100% supported by grants, and some Medicaid monies come in. So if a woman is being treated by a therapist and they're doing counseling, or they're doing trauma work, or they're doing, which all of our work is trauma informed, or they're doing directly addiction work, much of that can get charged to Medicaid. And so we are raising all the monies that cannot be covered by Medicaid through grants and individual donations. But it is definitely the grants that have launched us and kept us going. And it's been a definite challenge for me to make sure that money comes in every year.
I've got maybe a tough question for you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but my question is kind of like, well, how often do you see repeat customers? How often do you see moms coming back? And how do you guys keep track and keep in touch with the babies to see how your services, improve their life long term?
Let me start with the hardest one first. We cannot fully keep track of our women once they leave our facilities. We are not a lockdown facility. A woman can walk out the door with her baby in tow and just leave for any reason. There are quite a few women who are here who have been court appointed. There are women who are here that have been to the hospital and the hospital had recommended them. There are a lot of circumstances where there's a carrot and a stick, so to speak. But there are a lot of women who come here because they hear about it online, etc. We would have to hire people to try to track women after they leave here. Very often these women move a lot. They change their cell phone number a lot. They run out of money to pay cell phone, and then they come into some money, or they start to work and they have money for a cell phone, new number, we can't follow it. So it's really hard to do that. The one thing that we have put into the program that is a solid force is the pediatrician for that baby. And the moms tend to go back to that pediatrician. They tend to come back. And so we keep in touch with those that keep in touch with us, and we have a much harder time tracking women who have left treatment, who have finished with treatment. And then you had a couple other parts to that question.
I know, I don't even remember. Do you see a lot of women that repeat, that come back for when they have their next child?
We do see women that repeat, and we see them often succeed in their second time. I was just interviewing one of the women who came to us when she was early in her pregnancy and decided to leave against, AWOL, against, I don't want to say medical advice, but against staff advice. She left. She came back later in the pregnancy and was really ready to work the program. She wanted to be clean for this baby. She wanted the baby to have a healthy birth. And so she came back around 7 months into the pregnancy, and we worked with her the instant she got here. She is still here. She lives in the 23-unit apartment building across the street. So she was able to put together a year plus of sobriety and with her baby and all that stuff. And now she's rebuilding her financial life, kitty corner to us, with all of our services available to her.
That's awesome. So I know people have other questions, but yeah, we've got another good question. So you said the moms can stay with you before the baby is born, and then a few months after, and if they choose to, then they can go live in one of the other homes that you all moderate. What is that like? Are there the qualifications? Is it subsidized living? Can you talk more about that?
Sure. We have one residential facility which has 24/7 care, and that's where women generally come when they first are getting pregnant. They have just come out of detox, so they've got 2 or 3 days clean. They need to get 30 days under their belt. They need to have lots of structure around them, care at the front desk and via nursing, 24 hours available and monitored. That still means that that front door is open, and if they aren't happy with their circumstances, they can leave. Or if their boyfriend or husband says, I don't want you there, I want you here with me, and pushes that position a lot, sometimes the women will leave. But a lot of women choose to stay. And we work with them like that. So then they finish with the residential part of their treatment. Some of them move from there to Terry's home, where they are now at the tail end of their pregnancy, and we then start the process, you know, with the nurse, with the wraparound care, with all of the pieces that came from our time with you, from our time with Impact 100, as creating this program. And then once they leave there, they step down to more independent housing. So they'll have a room, they'll share bathrooms, kitchens, living rooms, they'll buy their own food, they are responsible for cooking their own food, whereas in residential, we provide them food and cook for them. Actually, they all cook for each other. They actually do that as a part of their recovery chores to keep going day to day. And then they have a chance to go into sober living, which is a 6-month time in their life where they have to have some kind of part-time work or be in school. And they can live for another 6 months with their child or children there. And then they're open to the possibility of living in our apartment building. And it's been a very popular structure because the housing authority here, CMHA, funds a vast majority of the rent for those apartments. So women are able to kind of rebuild their financial lives for the first time since they got sober.
That's awesome. Are the baby's fathers involved in assuming a role in their lives?
Sometimes and often not. Sometimes they are involved. Sometimes a family will be supportive of this mom getting her program in order, her life in order, her kids' life on track. And some of these kind of broken situations where the dad was a pimp, where there's a boyfriend who is also into drugs and he's using and she's not, and she's at risk for going back to him. And sometimes both of the partners are in different rehab places at the same time trying to get off the drugs. So we've had it all over the map.
Wonderful. How active is your board, and what role can volunteers play?
Our board is very active. We love them. They care deeply about First Step Home, or they're not involved. This is not a place for, a dilettante involvement. You have to kind of be committed, and you're going to see some hard things. And we have seen some hard things. We had, for example, last year, we had one woman who had a 6-month-old baby who had been doing great. She had just done an article for the Inquirer, and her boyfriend came over and she OD'd and died. That scenario, we have Narcan in every house. We have, that scenario is a nightmare scenario for us. But I guess what I'm saying is, every time someone uses, there is a risk that they are going to die. And particularly with this opioid epidemic that has not leveled off even a little bit during the COVID time. In fact, it may have increased during the COVID time. We don't have solid figures from the health department to back that up, but there are a lot of people are saying that their facilities are slammed, that they're overwhelmed, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just forgetting what the last part of the question was.
I am.
Volunteers? What about what about role of volunteers?
Volunteers, most of our volunteers help us during the holiday seasons. So they help us get a real Thanksgiving together for the women. Each woman gets a turkey and all the mix makings and all the fixings, and she can put together a dinner for her family. And we have women who come here and do caroling, usually from their church, a kind of an organized thing. And they bring, hot cocoa and cookies and a Santa, and, the women love it. We do have things around Mother's Day, which can be a hard time for women who have lost custody of their children. That happens a lot, particularly with the older children. But we don't have lots of, we've had groups of people volunteer and help us with our gardens. But we don't have lots of ongoing week by week, so-and-so's coming in and helping in childcare, though we do have somebody wonderful who does that, because of HIPAA and privacy laws.
We've gotten some really great questions, and a lot of them are from our board or past board members. Anyone on the call that is not an Impact 100, please feel free to speak up, unmute yourself, or put something in the chat. We've got some other personal questions for Rachel, if no one else has any questions about First Step Home, but I'll just go ahead. Barb had asked, on a personal note, how do you go from filmmaker to development director of a nonprofit?
Well, it's a journey, definitely a journey. It was interesting. I had noticed with 25 years of making films that every time I wanted to make a documentary, I had to go out and raise the money for the documentary. And eventually I kind of noticed, gee, there are people that do this for a living, like raise money for a living, and you could be one of them. And so I started at the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati, being a full-time fundraiser. I was the director of their special projects and raised several $1 million in almost 2 years of being there. And I chanced upon First Step Home. They wanted someone at that time on a contract level to help them with their fundraising. And one thing grew to another. They wanted help on their gala. They wanted help launching a donor database. They wanted help this, help that. And, and eventually I think they saw that they would do better to have a full-time person than to have a contract person doing more and more and more. So they offered me the position and I took it. I do still keep my toe in terms of film. I'm on the board of Women in Film Cincinnati. I do work on projects for others and have a couple of things in the pipeline for myself. I think it's actually a good mix. Here is great storytelling, unbelievable stories these women have. And I resonate with that so much. So if you find that our videos are a little better than most organizations' videos, you'll know that it's my busman's holiday, and I get involved in those.
We may recruit you to be on our board here pretty soon.
There you go.
Well, on that note of storytelling, when you hear all these women's stories and you get so involved in some, maybe the worst times in these women's life, how do you measure success? How do you walk away from the day and find yourself, make it all worthwhile?
Well, it is truly valuable to be here. I couldn't be helping more directly with women's lives if I was doing almost anything else, because we're small. We have under 50, just under 50, but we have under 50 employees. We take care of 400 women a year, plus their children, about 120 children a year. I am inspired by these women. If they can do it, I can have someone turn me down and live to tell the tale. So one of the things that I find that's really compelling here is that we have a management team. All are equal other than our president, so that the woman who is dealing with all the clinical work and the staff of clinical and I are exactly equal in stature. I find that's a good structure for us. If we were much larger, we'd have to break it down and get into vice presidents and then directors and all that stuff, but we don't have to here, and we don't.
That's awesome. Well, I'm seeing some people that are having to take off. So I just want to let you know that, Jenny said thank you for all that you do. Such a great organization. And a few others in the chat. But before, I don't want to keep anyone over. I'm noticing we're after 1. So if you guys want to stay, please stay. Rachel, if you have time, we'd love to obviously keep talking to you. But I'm going to do a quick, closing, and I'll stop recording. And then if you guys want to stay and chat, if Rachel has time, we can do that. So quickly, I just want to let you know, if you want to hear more about First Step Home, please jump on their website. I put that in the chat. And if you want to hear any more about any of the nonprofits, any of the other nonprofits that Impact 100 is funded, please jump on our website. We also have a YouTube page where we have posted these other recordings. And so you could join us next week for our final live event for the year, which is amazing. This will be our, I think, 14th one. We also have one more Step Up series, which is You Can Walk with Impact 100. We'll be walking around Findlay Market and hearing from a nonprofit, one of our past grant recipients, through that as well. You could join us for our annual award celebration, which is really the biggest night for us of the year, and you'd be able to hear from 8 nonprofit finalists, and you'd get to hear which 4 are being awarded the grants for this year. And then we also have an Equity Champions cohort going on right now. Women from Impact 100 felt it was really important to put some focus on diversity, equity, inclusion. So we have our Facebook group where you can join in on the conversation, see what books, movies, documentaries we are watching and discussing, and join on in. And I feel like I forgot this other really important part. If today, because of Rachel's story, you're so compelled to become an Impact 100 member, you can do so anytime before December 31st. That's when all membership dues are needed by the end of the year. But you can become a full member, half member, 110% member, because again, 100% of that $1,000 or $500 goes to the nonprofits. We ask members to become 110% to offset cost of things like this. Putting things like this on do actually cost money. Full vote is that $1,000 membership. Half vote is for that $500 membership, and you can pay credit card, check, you can pay monthly, one time. But if you have any questions about membership or anything like that, of course, reach out to anyone, any of the board members here that were on the call, or even our past board members. They'd be happy to speak with you. And with that, I want to thank you, Rachel, for joining us. I'm going to stop recording here, and yeah, we can keep chatting if you want.